It is Wednesday evening, and that means it's time for another Auburn Family Night. This is a show where you decide what we talk about, your comments, your questions, and usually your calls. A little bit coming up about that in just a little bit. But the point is, this is about you. This is about Auburn. Let's get into it right now. War Eagle Auburn family, War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, however you got here, whether you got here through YouTube, through Facebook, through other means and other places and things out there, we appreciate you being here and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. On tap for you this evening is a condensed, most likely condensed version of this show tonight and a later than normally version of this show. Just due to some personal scheduling stuff tonight, we had to push it back an hour and also probably cut it a little bit short because life's just busy right now. And sometimes you got to just go with the flow as best you can. But we made it here tonight to talk about all things Auburn, and we want to talk about it with you. A couple things that you can do to get us started off tonight is, first of all, smash that like button if you enjoy this type of content, if we feel like we've earned it. And of course, if you can hit a share button, if you're on a social media platform watching it, however you can help continue to grow our little family within this Auburn family. But you could also post where you're watching from right now in the comments, your city, your state. If you are international, please do that as well. We'd love to know who is watching, where you're watching from this evening. Because especially, and this will kind of, let me set the table while you guys are doing that. We'll say hello. Today is Hay Day. If you don't know what Hay Day is, it's a very special, very simple, but special tradition at Auburn University where you simply just say hey to each other. It was back in the 1940s. You know, I'm not gonna do justice to the story, so you can go look it up. Just type in Auburn/Hay Day. You will get the Hay Day market first, but the official story about how this began is there. But it's a way to cultivate the Auburn spirit, mainly amongst the faculty, the students, people that are actually currently at Auburn. But we kind of take it and run with it. So would love to continue to say hey to all of you out there on Hay Day, as it is very special. Plenty on tap to discuss. Big weekend for sports. Ole Miss in town. Lots of other programs are going to be in town too. Looks like it's going to be great weather, depending on whether you wanted true fall weather or maybe like light fall weather. It's still going to be great. And there's basketball getting going today. I will be honest with you, had every intention to watch the press conferences today. And as I said, just like getting late here tonight, today's been a hectic day. So I may not be as informed on that tonight, but we can still talk about it. I'd love to know what you think about it. Lots of fine people that are here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I see David, I see Corey, I see Kevin, I see WT, Jay, Van, and I think I said hey to Devin. There's Devin. Good to see all of you fine folks here. Remember, as you're here, go to Good Crowd Already Assembled, smash the like button if you haven't done that already. So let me address this first off. There are no phone lines tonight. I know. I'm sorry. I promise that to you every Wednesday night, just due to the nature of how crazy today has been. We're not going to accept phone calls tonight just because it'll just be easier. We will probably do a condensed version of the show, meaning we might get out of here in 30 minutes. I don't know. We'll see. Sometimes you just need to hang out with the Auburn family, though, so that could be a good thing, too. So we'll see how far we get into this thing. But I really do want to, as we do every Wednesday night, dive into what you want to discuss and what you want to talk about. So post that now. What thoughts are on your mind? What questions are on your mind? Obviously, a lot of football-related stuff. So as those come up, let's hear it in the chat. Post them now. If you're doing them on the replay, obviously can't respond to them completely. Kevin just says running backs. Just talk running backs. Well, we could talk about Cadillac. We could talk about I know what you mean. Yeah, obviously, it doesn't sound good for Damari Alston coming back. A lot of questions around, like, is Jarquez Hunter ever going to return to form? A lot of excitement around Jeremiah Cobb, Brian Battie. So it's just been an interesting year for running backs, Kevin. So that would be my general thoughts about that to start off with. Devin says, talking about the SEC Media Days press conferences with basketball, the press conference is good. Bruce said he hasn't picked his starting five. I did see that, but we will have a 10-man rotation with every one of them having a potential to start. I'm going to be honest, Devin, that sounds like every year. So what did he say? Because that sounds like what he says every year. Now, the reality is you say that, and as you get further into year, you figure out who can and can't help you as a starting individual. Like we heard that when like Zep, the dynamic between Zep and Wendell in their first years together, Zep kept starting, Wendell would come off the bench, and then that changed a little bit. But because of the way that Zep got us off to a great start defensively, you could not afford to get him out there. It seemed to be indicated from the beat writers that the insinuation was that the only secured spots are like Janai, and I think I heard Denver Jones, which shouldn't really shock you, right? But regardless of that, it's there's a little bit of excitement around the basketball program, folks. I just want to give you a second to pause and think about. Let's not build up the expectations, but there seems to be a little bit of quiet buzz around what this team could sneakily be if everything lands the way it's supposed to. At least that's how I feel. I don't know how all of y'all feel. Joseph Goodman and a dumb question. I mean, those are just synonymous, aren't they? I know what you're doing, Joseph. You don't fool me. If Bruce had political aspirations, Bruce handled it very well, said he was here to talk about basketball and highlight his team. Yeah, you get people like that who are clearly just trying to stir up something for controversy and for, just because that's what gets clicks. I mean, let me say this about Joseph Goodman. He's brilliant at what he does because he knows what will get people stirred up. And that's what people get clicking on him, his articles. He is truly a person that believes bad press is not bad press. So we're talking about him and on a show where we necessarily wouldn't be. So his plan has worked. I see what you're doing, Joseph. It may have worked technically, but it's not working. Big Simp and Stan are now here. Good to see you. Good to see you. WT says, I'm very optimistic about the Auburn basketball team this year. I think we'll make some noise. That's kind of how I feel about it too. I'm a little bit burned with having unsecured optimism, meaning optimism without like a lot to fall back on. There's a lot of unknowns with this team. You got your front court in Jalen, in Dylan, in Janai set, and you got some carryovers such as Katie Johnson and Trey Donaldson and several others too. Chris Moore, but there's a lot of unknowns about this basketball team. So I'm cautious. When I say cautiously optimistic, I am cautiously optimistic, like as far cautiously as you could be. Corey asks, who do you think we will actually get on the recruiting front as an offensive line goes? I'm starting to worry about position. Would rather recruit than get from the portal. So a couple things from what you're saying there. And let me point out, I'm not, again, Corey, you've been here long enough. No, I'm not poking fun at your question or being serious about it. But I want you to everybody read the question here and remember back to when everybody declared that this offensive line transfer group was going to be the best there was. Does everybody remember that day? So maybe, just maybe, we should all kind of dial it back a bit about the assured things we talk about, or that we assume they're going to be assured, and just kind of wait and see how things happen. I'll be honest with you, Corey. I do not know. I don't, frankly, pay attention to recruiting until it becomes clearly evident that somebody's about to choose us or choose between us and someone else, like a decision date. I just, there's no joy. Now, I try to stay up on kind of what's trending, just so I check in on a few places just to kind of get a feel if I need to be looking for something, but I truly have not looked anywhere else. We got DeAndre Carter. That'll do it for me. And listen, just because this transfer portal group didn't necessarily work out yet, doesn't mean they won't, but it also doesn't mean that another group won't be better. The reality is that you've got to start building from the foundation up, and it's going to take some time to do. Your fears are warranted. Let's see here. Stan says we have 16 O-line now looking to pick up 4 to 5 from high school, 1 from JUCO. I think when I did the breakdown of that sounds about right. Of course, of all, Stan, you'd have to actually I don't think you're connected with the team, are you? But that's just what probably media sites are telling you. To me, if we were going to pick up that many, the plan was we'd be a little bit further along in that process, and we don't seem to be. I don't get the feeling that we're going to get as many as that in the high school level, at least. Neil points out Ole Miss hasn't beaten Auburn back to back since the 1950s. Just putting that out there. Put that energy out there and see what it does. Love it. Love it. They also have not had a good record at Jordan-Hare. So, with that in mind, does that make you feel better about this situation? Look, it is going to be a tough hill to climb, but if it can be done, it can be done at Jordan-Hare. We've seen that this year. We saw that 2 years ago with that Alabama team that had no business almost getting beaten Jordan-Hare. So yeah, it's it's going to be a fun night, but I wouldn't get your hopes up right now until we see some solid things. Big Simp, why did we stop the momentum before halftime with Ashford when we were moving the ball, put Thorne back in, and we went to halftime with nothing? Make it make sense to me, please. Well, the reality is you're not a coach and I'm not a coach. They obviously had a reason for doing that. They're not trying to fail. It didn't work. So they do look dumb or stupid or doesn't make sense to us, but they are trying. Let's see here. Haven't won at Auburn this century. It's true. Well, I would say that it sounds about right. I can't think of the last time they won. Oh, it was the Ben Obumanu drop pass, wasn't it? Eli Manning. I was there for that one, sitting in the nice seats in that end zone. I literally had not front row, but the closest view in that middle deck area that you could have to that drop. I remember vividly watching the ball float through the air and being like, he's going to drop this. And it's almost like I spoke it into being. That's not possible. I'm just being, hyperbole here. But I could just see it coming. It was like too perfect. And then just hit him in the chest. I think it hit him in the chest. I just know he dropped it. And he hits the ground. And Ben was because he's not anymore, but a great wide receiver and a great guy. And you just hate to see that happen to him. I mean, the odds that happens to Ben Obumanu had to have been so low, and yet it did. That was a frustrating year too. WT is excited about Aiden Holloway. I'm kind of like I was saying earlier about expectations for the team. I'm excited in many ways for things related to Auburn, but I've been kind of burned lately. So I'm holding a lot of tempered, cautious optimism for a lot of things right now. AU won it. Let's see. 10 years ago, Ole Miss was the heavy favorite. Auburn won it. Remember telling my Ole Miss buddy that Auburn would eventually take Hugh Freeze away from him. Well, here you are today, Nostradamus, right? Devin asked, would you be surprised if Robbie starts? No, but that's not an indication of Peyton not being the one that should start. That's just, if I'm a coach trying to grasp at something right now, trying to get something going positively, you might say, you know what? He literally might just walk out and say, tonight feels like Robbie's night. He's getting the start. And I'd be down with that. I would not be upset with that. I would hope it would work out. Man, it wouldn't surprise me. I guess I'm not anticipating it. Big Simp says, I played sports. My teams never stopped ourselves. We played until the defense stopped us, coach or not. If you see something isn't working, you keep it moving. You keep it moving, meaning like you keep moving forward, changing, I guess is what you're saying. But yeah, I don't think it's that simple. I think, not just directing at you, Big Simp, and I say this for myself too. I think what a lot of Auburn people have to start doing, and again, I'm saying this to myself too, is come to grips with the fact you don't know as much as you think you know about this team and what's truly going on. And I'm not talking about like there's drama behind the scenes or things like that. Just some things are starting to line up with what the coaches were actually saying preseason. And not to say that they were being pessimistic, but there's just some things that you caught up probably, and I should have caught on early to say, it's going to be a struggle. And hopefully we can get to 6 wins. I think we can. I think we can get to 7 wins, but it's tough sledding right now. Don't know if there's going to be bad blood seeing that Freeze is playing Ole Miss. Nah, he kind of talked about that during his press conferences this week. That initial raw feelings and emotions after going back to Ole Miss has already happened at Liberty, and they received him very well. So, I mean, I guess that could open it up for, all right, we've all had our feel-good moment. Let's just go after each other now. But we'll see. We will see. Kyle, we will have to disagree tonight. Stevie Wonder can see this is not it. Oh, don't do Stevie Wonder like that, big simp. Don't do Stevie Wonder like that. Let's see here. When Freeze was hired, it would take him 2 to 3 years to get good players. The AU patience is key. I mean, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. I've also heard that said by, I've also seen that said by several people, but we're not very patient with themselves early on. And so it's much easier said than done, I think, is what we've all learned and talked about here. Stan, what you have to know, Kevin is one of our most optimistic people, and I love that about him. And you should be more like him. I should be more like him. If here's what you need to know about Kevin. Kevin says it, it's going to happen. He can still bring that energy, like Devin said, though. It'll be an interesting game. Freeze will be playing his old school. Joey Freshwater wanting to beat the team that courted him for a while. And that's who you were calling Joey Freshwater. I didn't get the reference earlier. He used it to get a pay raise. It'll be a very interesting time after the game to look at the Ole Miss temperature if Auburn upsets Ole Miss. I think it'll be quite steamy for, I guess, Joey Freshwater, as you're calling him at this point. Kevin is a national treasure. Russell is back. Russell, I didn't mean to say this in the comment like you haven't been around, but I feel like I haven't seen you lately. So good to see you. Big step. My only hope the rest of the year is LSU knocking at Bama out of it. That will be my early Christmas present. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but yeah, don't think you're going to get that present. Remember a couple weeks ago when all y'all were calling for it's the end of Bama's reign, and here we are. They're doing just fine. This is why you can't set yourself up for failure like that. Now, look, I also will say this about the prognosticators, gushing over Alabama this last week, acting like that they've somehow got it all figured out. They have not got it all figured out. They're giving up the most sacks in the SEC, I think is what it was, the stat was, which is mind-boggling, actually. They have not got it figured out. They're doing just fine, though. So there are issues, as Stan says, but when you have a foundation laid like they do, you don't fall as hard. We're all hoping for this. The reality is it's probably not going to happen. It looks like Keontae Scott is hinting. I don't know that it's been confirmed that he's back, but he certainly made us all think yesterday, I think it was, that he was hinting at a return, and that will be very much needed. Very much needed. He called himself Joey Freshwater? I don't get is that like a joke like that for why he would call himself that? I don't get the reference. What a weird guy he is. What a weird guy. Yeah, look, that could have been your head coach, folks. I will never forget. I was actually in Birmingham the day all the Auburn coaching stuff it had been swirling for a while. And I remember calling somebody that morning that I trust their opinion on stuff. And I just said, look, do I need to start accepting Lane Kiffin as the head coach? And we're just kind of having that conversation. Like, how do you feel if it is him? Because it's kind of sounding like it. And I said, my biggest fear is that he'll be gone as soon as that Bama job opens up. And that will be the biggest burn ever. And I don't know that he necessarily fits our culture, but I'll give anybody a chance, clearly. And lo and behold, like just hours later, the winds started shifting and it became Hugh Freeze. And I was like, we're going to do this. So what a time that was. It's almost been a year since that. Interesting. Didn't know that. Didn't need to know that. Wow. These are bigger things than I needed to know about Joey Freshwater. Neil says, still not understanding how Kiffin is the heir apparent to Alabama. Well, I don't necessarily think he's the heir apparent, but he's let's be honest, he's a likely candidate for it. You want some with some familiarity. You want some probably that's going to have a good offense. You want someone that's, probably fits your culture. And I say that's a better fit for him. It makes a lot of sense. But there's, of course, the Dabo, line out there, one of the other Saban acolytes out there, or just going somewhere completely different. Wouldn't it be funny if Brian Kelly left LSU for Alabama? Watch the Bayou Bengals roll. It'd be hilarious. What's the outlook for Petrino taking over Texas A&M? Jimbo's clock is ticking. Hasn't his clock been ticking the entire time? I tell you what, I thought Auburn fans had it bad, and Texas A&M fans, I don't know how they're dealing with all this right now. So much expectation, so much money spent, and so little gained. It's interesting. Stan, that is a big fear for me. You say to Bama, we hope. Do not wish primetime goes to Bama. I would rather any coach than Deion Sanders go to Bama. That man's energy with that national brand. Don't think that Alabama's not looking at that over there. And if he gets things righted at Colorado and the experiment just somewhat works, don't think he won't be successful there. I see you giving me crap for it. Don't you dare dismiss that. Deion Sanders at Bama is not something we want to see happen. Let's see here. Here we are talking about Bama so much. Do you know who took over after Bear retired? No, you do not. I do not want to take over for Bama when Saban retires. Well, and that's what they said about Saban too, that nobody would ever match the Bear for them, and there they are. The phrase more commonly known is you don't want to be the guy that replaced the guy. But I actually always heard it said, you don't want to be the guy that replaced the guy that replaced the guy. Let me see if I can remember this properly. And the story goes that I think it was the 49ers, if I have their succession correct at quarterback. Joe Montana was the guy. And we kind of, if you know the NFL, he left. The guy that came and replaced him, you don't want to be the guy to replace the guy. Steve Young, he did all right. And then I think after that, it was Jeff Garcia. And I think he had like okay time there, but clearly we did not live up. So you never want to be the guy that replaced the guy that replaced the guy. Now, there's been coaches in between in between Saban and Bear, but that's their guy who replaced the guy. You don't want to be the guy that replaces that guy. Anyway, you want to talk about the biggest troll ever if Gus Malzahn does that? Jeez. Wow. Don't wish that. Don't you dare wish that. Anyway, what else Auburn's on y'all's minds tonight? I got a few minutes left here. Like I said, we're probably going to cut it a little bit short tonight, but I wanted to make sure I hopped on here, even if it was late, because I do want to honor you guys, understanding that we do these every Wednesday night. And, barring unforeseen circumstances or craziness in my life, we plan to maintain those schedules. But we made it here tonight. All right. Comments and questions, keep them coming. We'll hit some kind of rapid fire at the end there. But let me go ahead and remind you of a couple of things tonight. Obviously, we want you to know what's coming up next. It's the plan right now. Thursday night, the preview and prediction show tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Auburn, Mississippi. Join us. We will predict, preview, and help you make a better score prediction by the end of it. Don't miss it. Watch Tiger Walk live with us for Ole Miss on the day of. It'll be a 6:30 kickoff, so I guess that'd be 4:30 Tiger Walk. Don't miss it. It's going to be fun. Post-game reaction show, depending on win or loss. If it's a loss, pretty quickly after, probably about 30 minutes and probably about an hour after the end of the game. If it's a loss, 2 hours after the game if it's a win, because of Toomer's Corner and all that. That's your big things to keep in mind. Lots of other content everywhere. As you know, my plan is always to be on campus for home games, and I plan to do that right now all weekend. Things might change, probably not, but stay tuned for all that stuff. You don't want to. And if you're a Conquer Club member, if you're interested in joining the Conquer Club, check out the links in the description. You can join here on YouTube, through Patreon. Several ways you can do that to get exclusive updates from campus from me at that second level, if you want to do that. 6 p.m. I said 6:30, so it would be 4 o'clock. I knew it was off. Yeah, so my analogy there doesn't always work, but that was a pretty good one, though. That one worked out for them. It did. There's very few absolutes in this world. Neil says, I just want to say Bruce Pearl is a wonderful person. Yes, he is. What a gem of a person he is. Some people are probably not going to agree politically, but tough cookies. And I would say that whether I was on his side of all that or not. Just everybody needs for lack of a better term, we all need to get our panties out of a wad these days. Thank you, WT. I appreciate you guys being patient, first of all, for the delay, for being willing to let me do an abbreviated version, but also just to be here and be present. You guys, like I always say about the Auburn Family Nights, it's not our biggest draw show, but it has, I think for me, the most enjoyable factor because there's no script. We're just here talking stuff. And some nights we're all disagreeing. Some nights we're mainly agreeing. I just really like meeting with everybody here because it makes me feel good, So thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you appreciating me, appreciating you, appreciating me. Yeah, look, I don't want to lose the Ole Miss stand, but it might happen. Russell says, everybody stay up. 3 recruiting classes like the apparent 24 is looking, and back to the top, hoping the current AU team has an exciting finish. 8 wins would be great. First year possible. Stay up. To me, this is my Auburn family. I enjoy the regulars and how the wholesome the chat is most times. I love how you edit most times. I think some of those post-game reaction shows are probably what you're referring to as not so wholesome. And that's just the nature of the beast. Or when we have rogue fans from other teams come in here. But I sincerely mean that. I don't just say that to pander and stuff like that. I do this show not because it's the biggest draw, earns us the most money on YouTube, but because I enjoy it. And I want you guys to know that you have a regular place to come meet and hang out. It's a clubhouse that, yes, we built, but you populate it. And that's what makes it the clubhouse. So while we do it, I think there's a couple of other shows that go live at us at the same regular time of 8. We've maintained that simply because we were doing that before they were, and we just want to make sure that we keep things the same. Now, we'll always investigate what we could do better and or what we could do differently, but want you guys to know that you have a place. It's always here for you. So Here's what I'll say to this, Stan. And I'm only gonna use you because I love you because you're here all the time and you're very loyal. But I'm gonna use you as kind of to speak to the general. I would encourage you to consider if your post on social media here, if the majority of them are negative, it might be time to change how you approach expressing those. Not because you don't need to. I want you to have this place to do so. But, we've got some that like to just pop in and all they do is complain. And I'm just going to be honest with you. If I only see you when you complain, you don't get addressed. But most of you that come here and want to express stuff, you have a very even keeled nature about it. And so even on your worst days, on my worst days, we give each other leniencies, right? We understand that we're all having frustrations and bad days, and that's not who we are. Am I getting philosophical at the end of this? Like, I don't know. It's been a day, man. It has been a day. So with that being said, and that weird end to the show, I'm going to call it a night there. Thank y'all so much for being here, for being part of our little family within the Auburn family. You guys are the best little family within the Auburn family. Until I talk to you again, hopefully tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Don't miss it. War Eagle.